So, I am very delighted, and it is my great pleasure to welcome Professor Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is the founder of the Mindfulness-based stress reduction program at the University of Massachusetts Medical School, who's joining us today with thanks to the UN Human Rights Wellbeing Unit and my colleague Mara, who has also just spent the last 2 days up at the Palais de Nation running her own events in celebration of Human Rights Day. And Professor Kabat, I thank you so much for being here. I would like to invite you now to lead us in a mindfulness for innovation moment. Over to you.
Okay, so you probably heard me ask what kind of time frame I have, but really, the nature of reality is that we only have one moment in which to live, learn, grow, transform ourselves, the world, and you know what that moment is. It's now. But usually we don't know how to inhabit the now. We're so busy going from the past to the future that the only moment in which we can really apply, sort of any kind of Archimedes type leverage for transformation needs to come out of this moment, and not so much out of just this intellectual wisdom capacity, but there's a larger capacity for wisdom and embodied compassion, and that is the totality of our being. So we're called human beings, but very often we act more like human doings, as the sayings goes. So mindfulness is really not some kind of esoteric, weirdo kind of meditative thing to get you into some kind of cult or altered state of consciousness. In fact, you could say our normal state of consciousness is an altered state because we're never present. If you check, your mind is probably always someplace else, desiring some better future or, obsessing about what happened and shouldn't have and everything else, which is all fine. I mean, that's part of one's intelligence. But if you miss the present moment, then that is what determines what the next moment will be like. If you're not here for this one, then why do you think you'll be here for the next one? And if you conduct your life on autopilot most of the time without awareness of the autopilot, maybe just right before you die, you'll wake up and realize, oh my God, I didn't hug my grandchildren enough, or my children, or, or speak in my true voice because I was afraid of what other people would think. So this is a kind of, mindfulness is really a way of reclaiming your intrinsic beauty and your intrinsic genius as a human being. And usually in the kind of work environment, that's not so appreciated. You're here for a job, and we don't necessarily say, oh, I really see your intrinsic beauty and the contribution you can make. It's like, just get on with the work. But if you really want to take responsibility for the world, and I have to say, I grew up in New York City, so I'm like in some way familiar with the UN. But on the other hand, I had zero understanding of the UN until I came to Geneva 2 days ago. And in the past 2 days, I've gotten incredible, I wouldn't call it an education, but more like a revelation about how uniquely important the stands that the UN takes in the world in general are for the maintaining of humanity and human dignity. And as much as possible, in a very complex world where nobody agrees with anybody else, basically, still trying to have a certain kind of equilibrium where basic humanity and human rights are instantiated as the absolute foundation of how we behave in the family, in society, in the corporate world, in the military world, everything, and that there's a lawfulness to it. There's a kind of intrinsic, if I can use the term dharma in the most universal way, we govern ourselves. And you're, in some sense, attempting, as I understand it, to govern areas of the world that nobody's taking enough responsibility for, that have to do with integrity, that have to do with the sovereignty of the individual in whatever the sovereignty of the nation or the group of nations is. So I could talk forever about this, but the most important thing is to not so much come out of the thinking mind and this talking mind, but to drop into silence and to really listen to your own experience emerging in this one single moment. And a very helpful glide path into it, doorway, entryway, is to pay attention or befriend an experience that you can't not have while you're alive. And so the fact that I'm guessing, this is a wild guess, that everybody in this room has the air moving into your lungs and out of your lungs. And if anybody does not have that experience, come and see me at the end, okay? But we take it totally for granted. I'm breathing, but there are many people in the hospital who have to be on machines of one kind or another just to breathe. So we always take for granted what we have until all of a sudden we lose it. And that, of course, is true in the end for life itself. So while we're alive, maybe it makes sense to at least devote some time to being fully who you are. And that's beyond your name, beyond your age, beyond your gender identifications, beyond your nationalities. It's like who you are is like a human being sitting or standing on the face of the earth. And alone, but also together. If you just press into your abdomen, I'm guessing that every single one of you will discover a scar called the belly button that at one point or another linked you to another human being who gestated you. And we tend to also even forget it, even if you're, have been a mother and are a mother. We tend to forget the miracle of it and the transmission element of it, that every generation receives from the generation before and then offers to the coming generation. But what do you have most to offer? Your intrinsic beauty, your truest nature. And that's way beyond words. And that's why poetry is so important in the world, because the poet's job is to put into words what's impossible to put into words. And the great poets manage to do that. And that transports us into another kind of, so meditation is another door, just like poetry, where what you do is you intentionally stop all the running around and you metaphorically and sometimes literally, and I recommend literally on a regular disciplined basis, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or one breath in and out, but whatever it is, to drop into being. We're called human beings, but mostly we should be called human doings. And so let's drop into, if you have pencils, put them down. If you have a laptop, best to shut it, because the mind will go to it no matter what. It's like, even if it's closed, and then sit in a posture that for you embodies what the UN is really about. And I would say that's human dignity, right? So sit in a posture that right now, no matter how bad things are in the world, no matter how much stress you have in your work, that you're embodying the beauty of who you are and the miracle of who you are by virtue of the belly button and the fact that the air is moving in and out. And we say, I'm breathing. But frankly, if it were up to us to be breathing, we would have died a long time ago, because we get so distracted, whoops, dead. Oh, I forgot to breathe. So we say, I'm breathing, but I tell you, the brainstem and the phrenic nerve and the diaphragm don't really allow us to modulate the breathing beyond a certain extent. How long can you hold your breath? You can't commit auto-suicide. You can't commit suicide by holding your breath, because nature won't allow it. So what we're engaging in through dropping out of doing for a moment, suspending all the doing and dropping into being, is we're actually tapping into a profound interior resource that has never been pointed out to us. And we can, to use a horrible drilling metaphor, drill down into it or open up to it and actually experience wakefulness, embodied wakefulness in this moment. It's called awareness. And everybody's born with it. Nobody understands it. No neuroscientist can tell you how you get awareness out of trillions of synaptic connections in the brain. And maybe that's not even how it happens at all. We just don't know. But we all have awareness, but what we don't have is access to awareness when we probably most need it. And probably your loved ones can tell you all sorts of examples where when I most needed you, you weren't there. You were often lost in thought or upset about something or other. And you didn't realize what the full dimensionality of this moment was calling for. So that's like a superpower. We're all born with this superpower of awareness. So without too much talking about it now, I would invite you to actually sit in a posture that embodies dignity. These chairs are not good for that. So, because like this is not probably optimal. So I'd suggest you move up on the chair, put your feet flat on the floor. Maybe this is reminding you of elementary school, but to sit so that your spine, vertebra by vertebra, self-elevates out of the pelvis. You have a stable base, and then it goes right up, the vertebrae go right up through your neck and head, and the head is like not looking around and, you know, sort of lost, but just, and you can keep your gaze unfocused on the desk or whatever in front of you, or close your eyes, and then see if you can actually experience the sensations in the body associated with this breath coming into the body, just this one, and this breath leaving the body. And so we really are not just dropping in the breath, but we're dropping in on this moment. And so actually there are a lot of moments just for one in-breath. It's not one moment. It's not a quick gulp. It's like a wave. And then at the peak, and then it transforms into an out-breath. And we're riding on the waves. And we can feel it. Where do you feel it? At the nostrils, one place to focus, or in the belly, beautiful place to focus, or the body as a whole, just sitting and breathing. Now, it won't take that long for your mind to secrete the thought, how long is this going to go on? Oh, what the hell am I doing here? I got work to do. And you know what that's called? You know what that's called. It's called a thought. It's a thought. And it usually has a certain kind of emotional charge, energy associated with it. Anxiety would be one, time pressure. So when you notice that actually you're not aware of your breathing, that you're lost in thought, that awareness is mindfulness. That awareness is the same awareness of the breath sensations moving in and out of your body. So you haven't lost awareness, but you might think, oh, I'm a bad meditator because he told me to stay on the breath. And I'm discovering I can't stay on the breath. That's not what meditation is about. Meditation is about discovering the enormity and power of the gift of human awareness that we all have, but often don't know how to utilize it, to bring a dimension of wisdom and kindness and compassion to all the thinking that's going on constantly. So thinking's not bad. We're not trying to suppress it. So just, if the mind goes off, the instruction is very simple. Notice what's on your mind. And notice in detail. Notice the emotional charge, the content of the thought. That's also awareness function, so mindfulness. And then let it be. Sometimes we use the word letting go, but then people think letting go means pushing it away, not suppressing it. But no, just let it be there. like a cloud forming in the sky, lots of clouds out there over the lake and over the mountains, and they come and they go, and it's not your business. They just come and they go. You don't have to take your thoughts personally. In fact, it's really great if you don't necessarily believe them, because 99.9% of them are garbage. And if you have one good thought in your life, I mean, that's really powerful, and you're Albert Einstein or, Mother Teresa or whatever. So everything I've said has been part of the meditation. It's not like, oh, now we'll go back to the meditation. We're still in the present moment. And it's like this. So if I'm speaking, then you're hearing, which is its own miracle, insane miracle. And if I'm not speaking, then you're still hearing. And what you're hearing is called silence. And you're awake in this moment. And you're not worried about what's going to happen next. Or you are, and then you're aware that you're worried about it. And so in a sense, that liberates that thought from you. And then you're here again. So you see, the real meditation practice is not sitting like a Buddha or a statue in the British Museum or something like that, or the museum here in Geneva. The real meditation is your life in every moment until the breath stops. Beyond that, I don't have like that much information. But up until now, that moment, this is it. And if you're zoning along on autopilot throughout the day, you're not recruiting the full dimensionality of your multiple intelligences to the work, and not just the work of the UN, but the work of your contribution to the world, including your family, but also, seriously importantly, not betraying yourself by being obsessed with something or other that blinds us, and we all do it all the time, to the potential for this superpower we're calling awareness or mindfulness to actually become our default mode, that we live here. And then life itself is, as I said, the meditation practice. So in the remaining time that we have, and I don't know how long that is, but it's an infinite number of moments, even if it's like one breath, let's actually rest in this moment in full awareness. And if you can, include a sense of the body as a whole, including the envelope of your skin. And the sensitivity at the nostrils to the air moving in and out. Or maybe even the sense of it in the chest or in the belly. And all like great dancers or singers or theater people, they all understand that the further down you can follow the breath into the belly, the more grounded and authentic you are. And the more you can move with grace and speed when you need to move with speed, but without losing your presence. So this breath coming in, this breath going out, moment by moment, by moment, by moment. Just this. Just this. And I'll leave you with a poem by Derek Walcott, who won the Nobel Prize in Literature some time ago, from the island of St. Lucia in the Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean genius poet. And this poem is called Love After Love. And one of the reasons I love the poem is because what we're doing, I see it as a love affair. Taking your seat is not, oh, now I got to meditate. Everybody's into mindfulness. I'll be falling behind in my, sort of social, sort of status if I'm not seen as a good meditator. It's just nonsense, bullshit if I use the technical term. But just to embody who you actually are which is more awareness than thinking or emotion. Thinking's great, emotion's great, nobody's putting it down. Those are superpowers too, but without awareness, they can be unbelievably destructive. And they can also lead you to think that you're the center of the universe. The story of me, starring me, and how horrible it is, or how great it is, or how depressed I am. And all of it may have relative, sort of validity, but in the larger picture, it's not the whole story. And the world or the UN needs you to show up 100%. And that means mindfully, heartfully, compassionately. And that's, again, I'm asserting this, but you can test it out for yourself. That's who you really are. That's our true nature. And the Dalai Lama always uses the example of a mother nursing a baby. The intrinsic sense of connectivity. But it's not just one mother and one child. It's like we all have that. When we see suffering, the impulse is to help, to be of some use, even at the risk of one's own life. And there are all sorts of stories of certain kind of heroism because with no regard for your own well-being, you move intrinsically. You don't even know how it happens because it happens faster than thought to help somebody else. So here's the poem. And again, we're intentionally resting as best we can in the present moment. So don't let the words actually distract you from the essence of it. They're pointers. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door. If you don't know English all that well, elation means tremendous happiness. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror. And each will smile at the others, welcome, and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to yourself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, who you have ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. I'll say it one more time. The time will come when, if you're lucky, if you're not so catapulted into automaticity that you don't have that moment until you wake up right before you die and realize, oh my God, I missed the whole show, which our famous philosopher Henry David Thoreau actually said in his writings. The time will come. When? It's got to be now because that's the only time there actually is. The time will come when, with elation, that means great happiness, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to yourself. To the stranger who has loved you all your life, who you have ignored for another, because you got distracted and carried away in thought and emotion, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf. You know what that's pointing to. The photographs, you know what that's pointing to. And now, like, it's all like, the desperate notes, why my life is so screwed up, or whatever it is. Peel your own image from the mirror, because the mirror is not reflecting who you really are at all. It's a mirror image. And then the invitation, very simple, sit. Which doesn't necessarily mean just sitting, because if meditation were just about sitting, I mean, it would be of relatively little use. So we think, oh yeah, I mean, you're not trying to become a statue in the British Museum. Every moment is a moment for wakefulness, embodied wakefulness, and kindness towards yourself, towards the world. It's intrinsic. The word for mindfulness in all Asian languages, the word for mind and the word for heart are the same word. So if you're not hearing heartfulness, when you hear the word mindfulness as it's being used in the UN, you're not understanding it. It's kind of, it's not a thought-based invitation. Sit. It's not just sitting, but it is feasting on your life in the only moment you ever have, we ever have. So why don't we just agree that from now on, let's say just for today at the Palais de Wilson, that this is kind of like, there's no end to this meditation. You notice I didn't ring any bells. I'm gonna meditate. And I'm not ringing any bells. The meditation's over. Because this meditation's never over. This work of the UN for human rights, it's never over. It won't be over in your lifetime or my much shorter lifetime. But that's not an obstacle to the love. The poem is called Love After Love. And I have come over the decades that I've been meditating, and it's like 6 now, formally, to actually realize that when I take my seat in the morning, as I do on an absolutely regular basis, it's like, you know, tuning the instrument before you play it. Even the greatest musicians, you got to tune the violin or the cello or the viola, whatever it is. So when I take my seat in the morning, it's not like, oh, I got to meditate because I'm Mr. Mindfulness and everybody will, you know, I mean, I have to keep up the appearance or whatever. No, I'm taking my seat because it's a radical act of sanity. Really, it's a radical act of sanity in a certain way, and it's a radical act of love. That's all.